Who are you and what's
So
your advice, my man?
you want my best advice. So here you go, Phil. When I had um, was back in business school and I was thinking about starting my own company, I was meeting with lots of different entrepreneurs. And one entrepreneur said to me, I was thinking about taking a job and like getting, lots of different experience and learning this and learning that. And he told me that entrepreneurship is a young person's game. And, I took that to heart. Where I think in your career, and if you are a salesperson, a sales manager, and you're thinking about taking risks, you know, it's not, it's best to do it now. It's best to try working at that startup. It's best to start that startup when you're younger. You have less responsibilities. It's easier to take risks when you're younger. And that's what I did. I jumped out of business school. I said, you know what, I'm young. I don't have a family yet. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to start my own company. And it has paid dividends for me. So I would say to everybody else, entrepreneurship, risk taking, it's a young person's game.
Awesome. Well, you look great for being 17, David. I got to tell you. I mean, that's incredible. So, no, in all seriousness, though, so that you took that advice, is that when you started Sales Rose, or what was the first jump you made?
Yeah, so that was my first company, and I've been doing it for 17 years now. So I thought about it in business school, was thinking about it, was trying to decide whether I do it or if I go the corporate route. And with that advice, I took the plunge, and I have never looked back. So it's really redefined my life. It has improved my life for the better, and so it's definitely been the most important advice I've ever been given.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. So 17 years ago, you saw the need for work from home outsource sales teams. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, I had built before that. I worked at an internet startup, and I was tapped by the VP of Sales as the 16th employee, and was trying to build their inside sales team, their call center, when I didn't even know anything, right? And so I built it up. I figured it out, and I saw how important inside sales development is through that experience. We had a whole bunch of outside salespeople, but the engine and what fueled our growth was inside sales. And so when I went back to business school, I just started thinking about that topic a lot, and how you can execute in a way that you can create really great sales development. And they weren't called sales development reps back then, but it's SDRs for companies. And one of the unique insights at that point, it's not unique anymore, so we put a lot of other things together, was hiring people from home. And so this is 2007. This is way before COVID, way before that whole work from home phenomenon took off. And I realized that if you create really good training, really good replicatable processes, really good management infrastructure, and a metrics-based way of managing, people don't have to be in a centralized environment. And so we built Sales Roads around the distributed model where people have worked from home ever since 2007, so that we could get the best sales talent across the country, no matter where they lived.
Wow. Wow. So let's talk about that. So what do we need to think about if we're thinking about working our people from home before we even talk about outsourcing? I mean, is there anything special? Is there a way of hiring? Or you mentioned metrics-based leadership, but what else, David? What else do we need to consider as we're looking at this?
Yeah, so I think there is a nuance to hiring people from home, but I think there's also some principles that are important throughout. And I think they kind of overlap for the right type of SDR. And so one of the things that we actually like to do is we hire SDRs a little bit later in their career. So they are not necessarily kids out of college, which is fine if you have the infrastructure management structure and path for promotion. But we really like to hire individuals who have built their career in sales development, really understand it. They look at it as a professional discipline, not just a stepping stone to becoming an AE. And so through that, our hiring process is a little easier, I'll be honest, because we can look at track record. We can see the impact and ask about the impact they've had at other organizations. We can do a lot of role play with them in their call because they've done the training. We can ask them questions. We can see how they have developed their skills and how they do things well, and really see, firsthand whether they're the type of person who has done this type of work, and their longevity factor. Obviously, people love to see longevity in companies, and that's important, but also longevity in this function. And do they know how difficult it is, right? Do they love the challenge of it? Or is it just something that's a job? And we want people that this is just a mission for them. They love getting up every day, finding the right people, talking to them, engaging with them, helping them, and then transitioning those to pipeline opportunities.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. So how many people do you have on the team, David, at any one time? How many do you have right now?
Yeah, so we have about 85 folks across sales roads. There's also a lot of infrastructure we put in place, because one of the things we do, and we do encourage folks, and we can get into some of this, is that being an SDR, it's a team sport. Building an SDR program process, there are so many aspects that goes into it. I think a lot of folks feel, okay, I'm ready to maybe I have product market fit. Maybe I know who my ICP is. I'm going to hire an SDR, give them a list, give them sales loft, and they're just going to go at it. There is so much that goes into getting this right, and that's why I think a lot of companies often struggle with it. A lot of outsourcing companies, people have difficulties and they don't necessarily get the results, but because you have to really be invested in the process, and it is a holistic type of endeavor that needs to be put in place to do this well.
Okay. So let's talk about that training that we need to make sure that our folks get. So you mentioned, not just product fit and sales loft. I'd imagine your teams know, they know the tech stack pretty well. I mean, is there anything special in the tech stack that they need to have to get trained on in order to be successful with you? Or is that company by company based on who you take on?
Yeah, so we do have a standardized tech stack that we put together to really make sure that we know what works, we know how to make it happen. And here's the other important thing that I would give advice to sales managers out there is keep it simple. More often than not, the tech stack, I would argue, can sometimes get in your SDR's way because you're giving them too many things to do and too many things to figure out. Let them be SDRs. Let them dial, engage, answer questions, follow up. If you have them doing lots of research and all these different things that they're having to put into the CRM, you aren't doing your job. You've got to simplify the process. We look at things through the prism of not what can we add, but what can we take away and still get the best results. Because the simpler that you make that process, which is our job as management, the more effective your team will be.
Wow. So how much training is it, and what else do you train there? You mentioned what do we take away? I like that, but you have to train something. So what are you training?
So at Sales Roads, there's a number of things that we train. So we have a very rigorous onboarding program. So obviously they're getting used to our tech stack and all the things that we're doing. And then we have a lot of training modules that really help our SDRs augment some of the capabilities and their talents. We still want them to sell. We say sell within your own skin, and we also try to empower our team to really be able to come up with their own way of doing things within reason. But because we're hiring really experienced, talented people, we want to be careful of putting them in a box. But that being said, obviously we have processes and ways of doing things that they can leverage to make themselves more successful. And so we will train on the tech stack, we will train on the process, the overall process, and then the sales skills. And the sales skills actually start with things that have very little to do with what you're saying or the things that are coming out of your mouth. Which, as salespeople, you think maybe that's what we get paid for. What comes out of our mouth, right? I would argue you've got to first start with your mindset. all the best salespeople that I have seen and experienced have an amazing mindset. They know how to get out of bed every day and get on the phone, get with prospects, and stay motivated, stay excited, and stay curious throughout the day. And that's doing cold calling. And so we talk about that. We talk about how to stay motivated, how, sales is tough, both as an SDR and as an AE, because, you know, wins can sometimes be sporadic, right? You can sometimes, it takes a while to get an appointment. It takes a while to get somebody on the phone. If you're an AE, you can, not get a sale in a few weeks or maybe a month for your quarterly quota. And so those salespeople that really excel know how to navigate those ups and downs and stay level-headed throughout and stay motivated. So we talk a lot about motivation. And also we support that at SalesRoads and really lean in motivating our team. So we talk about that type of mindset. We then talk about the process, again, keeping it simple, really trying to make sure that you understand your personas that you're talking to, how to understand a buyer persona, how to understand what the potential pains are, so that you can empathize with it. And then lastly, before we get into some of the things that are this is the first part of things coming out of your mouth, is just tonality. It's amazing how you can listen to two people say the same thing and one person is convincing and the other isn't, right? And so you've got to lead, especially in a cold call. It's so important to be engaging in the way that you're saying something, in the way that you're pausing. A lot of times, especially because it's a cold call, people speed up. They want to get through the whole pitch, I hate to say, but what they're trying to say. Our best SDRs slow down. They don't lean in, they lean back. They draw people into them. And it is magic. And so it's really, we play a lot of those calls. We talk about tonality. We talk about pausing before we even get into what you're going to say, overcoming objections, all those things which are important. So those are just to give you a sense of how we approach training.
Wow. So starting with mindset, I think is fantastic. I think that is really key, especially for an SDR. Then making sure that there's a simple process so that they understand the personas and the pain to empathize. And then tonality, which is something that, so many organizations take for granted. So, but let's dive into the mindset before we skill set here. Let's dive into those three just a little bit, at least the mindset and the tonality, because I think those are interesting. So David, you mentioned that they got to be resilient, right? That they've got to be able to highs and lows and navigate all of that. I mean, how do you make sure that you hire someone that has the right mindset? Do you ask them and to give you examples of highs and lows, or what are you doing here to make sure that is successful?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. One, that's why we do like to see people who have been in the industry for a while. I mean, it's always better if they didn't job hop, but really understanding that they've been in the industry and they know what this job entails. And if you can, stay in this job, it's something that you want to be in. First of all, you've got a sense that they've been able to navigate some of those highs and lows. So that's the first sort of check mark. And then we ask them just questions about some of the times that they've really gone into a slump. When they maybe haven't talked to somebody for a day, right? Sometimes there's those days you don't get anyone on the phone. How do you stay motivated? What are some of the things that you do? What are some tangible things that you try to do to keep yourself motivated? How do you motivate others? Sometimes, those folks who are I see we have a big Slack channel. Those folks who are able to keep motivated, they send quotes to one another, right? They send encouragement. So those types of people who really look at this as a team sport, who are helping each other out, are those that are usually most successful.
Wow. Wow, the whole team sport of SDR land, especially when they're remote, that's tough. But I love that you mentioned the whole Slack channel thing. I mean, do you encourage them also to, to jump on video and chat with each other to help work through problems? Or what else do you do there, David?
Yeah, so well, there's two things. One, we encourage them to have fun. So we have like a water cooler channel. Probably a lot of people have that, where people are just posting fun things about kids' birthdays. They might be answering questions, and we encourage that a lot. We have a lot of game days where we get people together, obviously on Zoom and things like that. But the other thing we do really try to encourage is one, to ask questions on Slack. Obviously, everyone's got a manager, but put it in the team channel. It's amazing how everybody tries to help each other out. If one person has a question, other people have, so they can help each other through those means. But also to jump on calls with each other. We're so big into role play, role practicing, and so one of the things we really ask people to do is not only listen to 3 calls of yours and 3 calls of somebody else's every single week, but jump on and do a role play with one of your teammates, or even maybe somebody on another team. We represent different products, because that is a great way for folks to get better. And then also related to all this, we have what we call our first Wednesday. So every first Wednesday, we tackle a topic. So, it can be overcoming rejections, it can be motivation, it can be, working with a gatekeeper. We'll tackle one topic, we go through things, and then we break people into breakout rooms, and they have specific things they're going to ask each other, work on together. And that builds teamwork across the organization every single month, because everyone's working together on different topics.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. So how do we know if we should even consider outsourcing? Is there a miss? Is there a typical, profile that people see that are like, maybe I should talk to David over at Sales Roads? What do you think? What are you seeing?
So I think there's a few things to consider. One, you've got to really know what your goal is. So there's really 2 buckets for that. One is, who your ideal customer profile is, what your product market fit is, and you want to proactively go after those ideal customers, and start having more conversations with them. You maybe run out of your referral network. Inbound isn't driving as many, or maybe it's driving lower quality leads, and you want to go after some of those big folks. And the best way to do it, if you know who your ideal customer profile is, or at least have a product market fit with some, and you want some help to design your ideal customer profile, because we can help you with that, then you can create an outbound motion. So you've got to know, whether you're in that bucket. And then you've got to work through, and these are some things we do through our sales process, because we really want to make sure that people think through this, is you've got to think through what would make this program successful. So what is your ACV? What is your close ratio? Now, if these are inbound deals and referrals, cold is going to be lower, right? But maybe ICV is going to be higher. So we work with that, and then think through, what are the metrics? How many appointments are you going to need to get to those close ratios to have an ROI? So that is the first thing you've really got to think through. And we think through that. That's just part of our sales process. We do a success analysis with people. We walk them through that motion so that we can make sure that this is the right fit for you and you're going to be able to get an ROI. The second bucket is earlier stage, or companies that are maybe launching a new product line. And we've worked with actually Fortune 500 companies that are going into into medical with a new device that they're looking to sell into hospitals and things like that. And they're not 100% sure they have product market fit yet, but they're trying to speed up the learnings. And we've worked with large companies, we've worked with seed stage startups, where we are going to work and develop a process where you're going to have more conversations with potential prospects, or we can actually ask some questions of those potential prospects to get a sense whether there's product market fit, get you some market intelligence, and then figure out, whether you're on the right track. But you need to know that that's the goal, right? Because until you have product market fit, and until you've defined who your ideal customer profile is, you can't create an outbound machine of predictable revenue. So we can help in either stage, but you've got to know which stage you're in and what your goal is, and then we can design the program around that.
That makes sense. So let's pivot back to training. You, on your website, you say 15 days to get up to speed. I'm guessing that's 3 weeks of actual time, right? Three 5-day weeks. So what's involved in that? Is the first week that mindset, tonality, and process? Or talk me through that 15 days.
Yeah, so that's the training that we do for the SDRs when they're being onboarded. So for a client, they're related but somewhat separate. So when we are onboarding a new client, what we do is we'll meet with them. We do an in-depth kickoff meeting, and then we go away for about a week and we build a strategic plan for their outbound motion. So we call that our demand generation playbook. So we build that for them, which is going to really outline their ideal customer profile, the buyer personas, the types of people within those companies that they want to speak to, the messaging, the value proposition, how that translates into the call approaches, the key probing questions we're going to ask, the emails cadences that we're going to send out. And also we build in, how are we going to have ongoing evaluation of this? How are we going to get, data from you to see what's moving through pipeline so we can refine the program? So then we present that to our client, we get sign off, and then we build a robust list from that. We have a lot of different sources of building leads, both traditional, like Zoom Infos of the world, leveraging LinkedIn Navigator, but we also have some great AI tools that are helping us in an amazing way to scrape websites and see whether these folks fit in that our client's ideal customer profile. So we'll build that list during that time, and simultaneously as we're building that, then we're doing training for the SDRs, and that's off of the playbook we just built. So they're going to start really understanding our client, the personas, the value proposition, start practicing the approaches. We're going to do role play. All that is done in those 3 weeks, as well as hooking into their CRM and setting up the technical side of things.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff, David. How is that? I mean, from a sales manager perspective, do you then have the sales manager on your side, or is there like I guess, do you pair them up with inside an organization, or how does that look?
Yeah. So what we do is we actually have 2 roles within our organization that are managing the programs. Our clients get a director of client success. So that's the person who's building the strategy, working directly with the client, reviewing metrics, going back and forth. And then we have what's called a talent development manager. So that talent development manager is the person who is doing the training of the SDRs, doing the listening. They'll jump on the phones too to test some of the messaging, and so it's really a team effort. But we split the role apart about 5 or 6 years ago. We did have one person doing both, but we realized it's so important to be able to focus on each of the roles that a lot of times if you're doing both, you're working with the client and the SDRs. We don't do enough coaching and managing and call listening, and you're working with So we split it up, and it's a team effort now.
That's great. That's great. So that teaming up definitely helps. So what do you is it all internal? I mean, do you have like books that you recommend for your SDRs that are helpful, or podcasts that you have them listen to, anything like that, so they can keep sharp, or do you just count on them to share with each other what they find helpful?
So we encourage people to listen to podcasts, listen to webinars on company time. So we have a little channel for that. If you listen to a good one, share it out. We try to sort of crowdsource it as a team. We have that formal training once a month. Those first Wednesdays, it's the ongoing type of training. We also have a whole repository of trainings that people can refer back to that they went through during the onboarding. So if they want to refresh certain things, they can tap into that repository. But we try to sort of crowdsource some of the podcasts and the webinars and things like that. Just when something strikes a chord, we ask people to Slack it in, and people can listen to it on company time. We definitely want people. One of our other core values is personal growth equals sales growth. So we really want to focus people in on their personal growth, because we know that that's key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So any books standing out recently, David, that you've seen that are highly recommended that you can share with us?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think sometimes rereading the classics um, are sometimes the uh, the most important. I go back to Dale Carnegie's books all the time, and I ask my team to go back to it. And I think sometimes, and I've been seeing things on Twitter and whatnot about this, is a lot of people are reading all these new books. I feel like it's good to just sometimes reread the books that you want to read. So so How to Win Friends and Influence People is just something that I try to read once a year. And I think that the principles in it are just stand the test of time. And I think it's, instead of reading a new type of thing, I think for mindset, I love, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I reread that
Yeah.
once a year just to give myself perspective. And so I sometimes think just looking at some of the things, the new books are going to come out all the time, but the way to, again, crowdsource or know what are the best ones that are going to always help you in your career, it's those that have been with us for longer periods of time, and those bits of wisdom are universal.
Cool. I dig that. I dig that. I like the old classics, some of them too. So that's pretty cool. Lots of old chestnuts. I like still enjoy Ogmandino is the greatest salesman in the world. Still a classic for me, and
Yeah.
definitely Carnegie. So that's great. So David, before I ask kind of the final question here, do you have obviously they can go to salesroads.com and check you out, but do you have any download or anything that you want to give people that they can learn more, maybe a white paper or something that can get more information?
So we have a lot of content on our website, salesroads.com. We have lots of blogs, about SDR tips, management tips, social selling, cold calling. So if you want to check any of that out, we have new content coming out every month. Also, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you just go to David Krieger, please, connect with me. I'd love to connect. Ask me any questions. I'm posting a lot of content there about things that I'm seeing in the industry, things that I think are important. And so that's, I think, the best way to just keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Love that. Salesroads.com or check out David Krieger, Kreiger. Check David out. So David, last question. How might people get started thinking about outsourcing their sales team? If they're considering doing that, if they're on the fence and they're not sure, what should be the first step or two that they should take?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is to take a look internally right now. So if you have an SDR team, are they hitting your quota? If they're not, do you know why? Can you diagnose why? And then if you can diagnose why, make those changes, right? If it's a certain person or you feel like the messaging. If not, you can call us. So there's other companies in the industry, and hopefully they have consultative approach where they can really understand some of the things that aren't working and then think through some of the ways that we can uh, refine that and help you to get your outbound engine working. If you don't have a SDR team right now, then I would go back to what we said before. Do you have product market fit? If you have product market fit, then think about, and you don't have a sale, even somebody who can really manage and spend time on the SDR function. It can't be an afterthought. You've got to have somebody who can really make it their focus, even a full-time focus. If you don't have that yet, I'd encourage you to think about outsourcing. It's a great way to first get things going until you get that role in place. And then obviously at that point, you can bring it in-house.
There you go. Great stuff. David, thank you so much for sharing this today. Lots of great stuff to think about. I love your tips about starting with mindset, keeping the process simple, and tonality. Lots of other great tips for training as well, and considering outsourcing your sales team. Thanks so much for your time. This was great.
Thank you.